Good evening, guys. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. Thanks for tuning in and checking out the scan for tomorrow. Friday was crazy. Started off the day a little bit red in the pins trade. I pretty much was fully convicted that this thing was gonna gap up and rip off the open and then start to pull back and unwind. And I just got there a little bit too soon, a little bit too early. It did kind of exactly what I thought, and then it lasted for maybe 3 to 5 minutes before it started to go a little bit higher. So I had to go ahead and move on. And I think that that's really the best thing that you can do in this market, because there's so much opportunity cost right now that if you stay in a losing position, or if you stay in a stock that you were expecting to make a particular move, but it doesn't make that move, or you're in there for 30, 60 or minutes or 2 hours, whatever it may be, there's so much opportunity cost that you could be in other names. For example, at that same time, RBZ came out with news. The news was right over here. Fortunately, caught a little piece of that, but 538 was the offer when the news came out. Offered a fantastic opportunity. If you're stuck in pins and not taking the loss, or kind of like too zoned in, kind of like horses with the blinders on. They can't see anything left and right. Well, if that's you on one particular name out of the open, or if that's you on one particular stock during the day that just is not working in your favor, then you're missing opportunities, especially in this market. So RBZ is a perfect example of that. And at the same time, TIGR, where if you guys caught the video this weekend that we did, we went over the failed follow through momentum, what it looks like, VWAP stuff, and when particular names get heavy. So with that said, great unwind over here, and the setup was perfect, and it ended up coming right down. So if you were in pins and you ended up taking the loss, you just had two trades right back to back, RBZ and Tiger, to not really get into too tough of a situation, because you had two winners right after that. So had you held your one loser, there you go. You just missed out on two other big winners. So then we had LK, which was incredible. The fact that I was ready, focused, watching these IPOs. This thing started at 17. It ramped up. Another Chinese name, and ramped up, pushed. I kind of let it push out. I don't like to try to get in front of it, just because I've done that and I've learned my lesson plenty of times. So anytime that I do try to trade the front side of it, it's always a little bit small, and then I'll quickly add to the winner. So if you go back and check the video lesson that I did this weekend, you can see my trades, the arrows. Also, it was on Instagram for those of you guys that missed it. But fantastic unwind, and immediately pulled back almost $2 per share. So that was without a doubt a cover spot for me, just because you have to react to that action. I talk about on these IPOs, you've got to have wish orders out there in the event that it swipes up, and also in the event that it unwinds and washes out. Sometimes when it washes out, it's literally just one seller, and then they swipe it right back up. So you could be up a buck or $1.20, $1.50, and literally the next tick is 70 cents, 80 cents, a buck higher. So if you're not there, you miss out. But anyway, I don't need to go back over this one again, just because I did do that full recap, which I will link to it in the scan for you guys to check out if you missed it for whatever reason. But really good example of failed follow through momentum, and basically a chart unwind. So a lot of sellers. If they did get short off the open and really get aggressive on the overselling, then there's a good chance that maybe they could support it out of the gate. Just like they were talking about Uber, they kind of oversold it so that they could support the washout. But higher the better here. Typically, I look for prior areas of either support or resistance that might end up being an issue. So in this case, 2080s would be ideal if it opened up and it was 2050, 2080s, whatever the case may be. Higher the better. I will look to lean on it if it starts to have failed follow through momentum. And it could easily go back to 17 pricing. But based on the volume, there should be a little bit of opportunity regardless. So OTLK was great. I did not. I mean, I traded it, but I didn't get too overly aggressive with it. As I've noted in prior video lessons, some of the trouble that I've had, especially after the whole BPTH type market, was on these types of trades, kind of thinking that they're going to have that next leg. So I didn't get overly aggressive with this trade here. I didn't get overly patient, but very good read overall. You had a nice little breakout over VWAP, and it continued to squeeze out through daily chart resistance, which would have been right over here at the 190 level, and then it got into this gap here. So that was a nice opportunity. In a situation like this, we like higher the better. We like to see it wash out, then come back and retest. This is exactly what we talked about on the video lesson that we were talking about. You need to expect that it's going to fail. So in this case, I had mentioned that 260s now is going to be the level of resistance in my eyes. And the reason for that was it pushed out. So higher the better. Any 250 stuffs, you should assume that it's going to fail versus the 260. So it offered a nice pullback here and there throughout the day. Again, it failed, and then that was the ultimate, obviously, the ultimate fail. But we'd like to see some news for sure here. Preferably not tomorrow, but it'd be nice maybe Tuesday. Maybe lock in a few more shorts tomorrow, and then put out some news on Tuesday or something. Get a little bit of a T+2 type rally. But 12-point target is not really news, right? It's not from the company. And they probably want to knock off those 10 million warrants, but we'll see what happens. Definitely is going to be a trade in a situation like this. If I was just to take a stab at it today without looking at pre-market action, I'd be wanting a retest of this prior resistance and a shove 230 to 250 range as sort of the area where I think that it could ramp to before it meets any selling pressure. And then look to fade it. If it starts to stabilize, just be cautious. You've already seen what it can do. It's had over 100 million shares, so there's plenty of shorts that could potentially be in there. NOVN, next one on scan, nice little grinder. This is nothing that I'm crazy excited about, but this is a really big chart breakout here. So if you look at the daily chart, you can see not only are we testing this prior high, this high here when it had 16 million shares, but we're also getting through daily chart, the VWAP over here, but also the 185 break or so, 182, 185 was the prior high. So this is the big level though, 16 million share day, and it's over that. So what you want to see is maybe pull back. Base at 160s, rips through 170, 180, and we might start to get maybe a two magnet or something like that. So we'll see what happens, but if you look at it intraday, you can see how it trades. This is not anything that's, this is exciting. It's not like OTLK was, where it's got a nice trend. So the thought process here needs to be a little bit different. It needs to be a situation where you're kind of thinking of a bigger picture type trade. We've talked about these wicks on many videos, so you can kind of see again how the dips are getting soaked up, and it could have a little bit of longevity on this breakout. All right, next up is ADVM. This is a nice little breakout. Past couple days, this has been on the 6% breakout, the continuation unwinder scan that we use, Trade Ideas. Nice steady breakout throughout the day, and many times it's come back and retest kind of trap. So pretty clean here. Definitely could consolidate and continue to go. I'd be watching pullbacks, ideally maybe something like an 880 pullback and then rally back towards 9. But 920, 950, if it starts ramping, then I'd start to look for that failed follow through fade. If you go back and look at ZYNE in a situation like this where you have a really big breakout on the 1 minute chart, if you go back to a couple of the prior days, you can kind of see where if it starts to go straight up, it does have that little bit of a pullback. Same thing over here, straight up, starts to kind of hover and then pulls back. That's what I'd be looking for. I'm not looking to trade ADVM for some type of really, really big unwind. I am just looking to take advantage of if they keep on inching it up, 920, 930, 950, 970, and then it starts to kind of find a ceiling. I'd be looking to fade it off from there. So I'd be interested there for sure. That's had about 2 million shares the past 2 days. We'll see what happens with that. ZM, higher the better. I'm not looking to get in front of this thing. It's been pretty strong since IPO. Had a couple nice traps, and now we've gone 73 to basically 90. I mean, pretty much $20. So ideally, it keeps on going. But when we got range like this, 3 to 5 to $7, $8 per share. I mean, there's opportunity there, just like we had on SWAV the other day, where I didn't try to find the top. I just waited for it. I waited for it to get heavy versus VWAP, and I joined that trend. I had posted that chart as well if you didn't see. So, rather than be a hero and try to find the top and add, and then get blown out, just let the trade come in. You can always trade a little bit less size if it ends up being a little bit of a chase entry, and then you can scale up if the trade continues to go in your favor. So, same kind of situation with like ZM. The only edge, in my opinion, is some type of parabolic move. So, if it was to go 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, parabolic, I'd react to that. However, if not, then I want to stay away and wait for the pullback. AVDR, nothing that I'm too crazy excited about, but this was a breakout idea, potential swing trade. Lower volume. You can see the volume started to pick up once it did the chart break over here on the daily. Another recent IPO that's taking a trend of its own. Higher the better. The main watch for me is not necessarily to get long. I mean, we'll see. I mean, if it sets up and it looks good, maybe. But again, it's got 100, 200,000 volume a day. I'd rather see it go, and then look for the backside. IOVA, this thing has had a nice little breakout here. This is one big candle of indecision and then another one the following day. So we should start to find a trend here in the next couple days. Don't try to guess which way it's going to go. You can see how it was hugging VWAP this day. Don't try to guess if it's going to go up or down. You're going to end up either getting too biased throughout the day, or you're just going to drive yourself insane trying to pick which direction that it's going. So keep an eye on it, but I do think that we have maybe a $1 or $2 type trade coming. I don't know whether or not it's going to be to 14, 13.50s or 16, 17. But I do think we're going to have a nice trade. I think that the 20 million share day right over here was a day of kind of getting old shareholders out, new shareholders in, new shorts in, and we'll figure it out as the trend progresses. So again, one thing to remember is when it's hugging VWAP throughout the day, don't try to guess which way it's going to go. Wait for it to crack. I'd rather be 10, 20, 30 cents late than just be guessing 50-50 and then have it swipe in one direction. So pins, I was like I said, I was early on this one. I did reshort late day, but I ended up covering it. It pulled back nicely, but it is what it is. Ideally, get a push towards 27.20s, and then look for the backside, and ideally some type of unwind from there. Overstock may gap up, maybe finally, with the Bitcoin is up quite a bit. I think it's up about 1,000 this weekend or something like that. So we'll see what happens with that. But this thing's been sold heavily, and let's just see what happens with this. I think that it's going to continue to fade off 9 to 8, and ideally we have some type of trade set up there. EOLS was fantastic on Friday. This was another one that I did on the video. So again, if you did not go to YouTube, check that out for sure. Perfect unwinder setup. Ideally, we retest towards the 1660s, 1680s, and then look for a fade off from there. Tiger, same thing. This was the other one on the scan. Ideally, comes back up towards the 590s, 620s maybe, something like that, 610s. And then look for a backside. I do think it's going to start to stabilize a little bit, but I think we still will have maybe 50 cents, 40, 50, 60 cents off the morning action. So we'll see what happens there. SYMC, I missed this one. I was prepared for it. I was hoping it would just go high, 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 and then retest the daily resistance over here, which it did break through. But ideally, we get another opportunity towards the 20, and then maybe sits back towards mid-19s. It's been straight up since this gap down day. Kramer liked it, and so far I guess he's been right on the buy of that pullback, but. We'll see what happens with that. I definitely like the fact that it's kind of faded against this VWAP, so that means that maybe some sell pressure is coming back. And if it stays heavy versus the 20s, then I think that could turn into a nice trade. Market permitting, of course. RLGY got some sellers towards the close. If you look at the daily, this thing is hanging on by a thread. We might have a really nice unwind here. MAXR. Same thing I've been saying. It reminds me a lot of LCI right here. So if you look at this recent move in LCI, I was comparing it to this move right here. And so far, I mean, that's kind of where we're at, where we've got this big move and then it starts to come back in. So we'll see what happens there. But ideally, we get some type of 750 move plus and then backside. ZYNE, higher the better. Nice unwind late day, but you really had to pick your spots. I don't mind joining this trend here. I really don't. It's pretty much consolidated and it's a little bit sideways right now, just like IOVA was. So it's definitely a possibility that it could be on the next journey up towards the highs again. But at the same time, there was some sell pressure on Friday. So I know we're going to have a nice trade here. I just want to be familiar with this chart, just like I say. I'm not looking to trade every stock on this list. I'm just trying to be familiar with all these charts, so that when and if the trades do set up, I'm ready to go. And the last two, one was Suave, so we already talked about that. But the last one was CC, which has just been a disaster. Definitely a seller in here. Every pop fails. And as I've said, I like it for a fade down to 22, maybe even the teens, as long as it continues to stay under VWAP throughout the day. I would not be fading it if it was over VWAP. There was one day this week, and I also got defended, that was over VWAP. Actually, I guess 2 days until midday over here. So you can see the difference here. Fading it versus VWAP, this as your risk, versus not fighting the trend when it's over VWAP. So that's the goals for tomorrow. I'm excited about the potential, especially this LK. This was really nice on Friday, but you got to come to the market with a plan. Got to be patient, wait for the spots. Don't just take a trade because you think that it should do X, Y, Z or whatever the case may be. Pin, same thing. I came in and I was so sure that it was going to do the ramp, gap up, ramp, parabolic, and then pull back. And, it did everything that I needed to see, including the pullback, but they ended up holding it and pushing it higher within the next, 3 to 5 minutes. So instead of just saying, hey, I'm out, I stuck around for a little bit too long, and I started out red on Friday. So fortunately, we had LK and a bunch of other, TIGR and RBZ that came rapid fashion right after. But you just got to be patient and wait for those ABCD or A plus setups or late day failed fall through momentum. Anything that you can. We talked about this in a prior video. Categorize, right? Throw away all the stocks, all the names, all the things that are, oh, that'd be nice. Oh, that looks good. Or I don't want to miss that one. If you can't immediately put them into a category of this is this type of trade, this is that type of trade, then it's not a trade. You need to start to focus on, exactly what you're familiar with, what you've prepared yourself for. And if you can't do that, then avoid the trade fully. So we'll catch you in the room tomorrow. Fabulous week last week. Hopefully we can do it again this week. And again, stay focused and make a game plan. Review the charts that you might, potentially trade this week. And just continually flip through these charts over and over so that you can kind of start to see them. And that's what matters. Preparation matters. Have a good night, guys.